every base they can. But in most schools, these classes fail to include another group of their population, the LGBTQ plus students. These kids are often left to fall through the cracks, left clueless whether or not if they are being safe or taking care of themselves properly. This is a small podcast I'm doing with my friend Kitsune here. I want to say hi.
Hello, I am Kitsune.
He's not from the same state, but since we're both in America, this applies to both of us. To start this off with your personal experience in sex ed and what you think about it, what you think it might need or what you think it might not need, and what your opinions are on bringing LGBTQ learning curriculums into it.
Well, my personal experience is, the general high school education that you were given. But from where I'm from, I figured it should actually be taught more at a higher level and given more time to elaborate instead of just one half quarter or so course. I feel like they try to cram so much that it ends up giving mixed messages.
Do you think that it's mainly more so based in heterosexual relationships and that they're not covering enough of the full spectrum?
Oh, well, in my sexual education class, there was actually no mention of anything LGBTQ, gay, bi, anything like that was related. It was just the basic relationship. And anything mentioned that was gay, lesbian, etc., was just kind of brushed. It was like slightly brushed over, like the teacher mentioned it, but it didn't really get brought up except for that one time in the beginning of class. And it's a very faded memory.
I think I remember mine, and it was more so than just telling us like what our body parts were, and that's it.
Yeah.
But this had happened when I lived in Texas, and
Okay.
so it was mainly just about anatomy and like abstinence and stuff like that, rather than like on how to actually stay safe. And it was mainly driven by belief, and there's like completely zero, no mention of like the gay community at all. It's like they didn't even consider it.
Basically, they tried to mix religion.
Yeah, and like in fact, on this one website, TexasTribune.org, I noticed something, and it's like quite recently too, that they were going to they're going over their sex ed policy, right? And they're making it to where it doesn't cover LGBTQ students, or even if they don't even cover what consent is. Isn't that crazy? And this is
even in my class, we went over what consent is. Like, don't try to give sleeping people your tea.
The other I saw that video was when I moved to New Jersey, but it wasn't from the high school, but a youth summit instead, specifically an LGBTQ youth summit, because they didn't cover gay relationships in sex ed, so they wanted to create a place where they would. And I feel like it's kind of ridiculous that you have to have these extra programs for something that should already be taught.
Yeah, but I suppose in some states stuff like that is still kind of considered taboo, which is kind of unfair.
And like I was interviewing a few people, and well, this one person had said that they don't want to know anything about that business, they don't want to know anything about that culture, and it's really driving to this ignorant state of mind where if you don't want to hear about it, then you don't have to respect it. Going back to the whole Texas situation, where they're not even covering the group as a whole, not even acknowledging their gay students, they're kind of being... Yeah, they're kind of being driven by this idea of ignorance and ignorance because they believe in something. And
they're letting their beliefs get in the way of what's right.
Yeah, and they're resulting to abstinence mainly. And keep in mind, I read this on their website. Texas actually has their pregnancy rate is one of the highest in the country. It's crazy.
Maybe it's because, people don't want to have to follow a strict set of guidelines and would prefer to be themselves instead of something that people want them to be.
Exactly. Like, if you take away this notion of freedom and you put people in a box, an ignorant box, it's just going to make people explore more, or they want to do more of what you say not to do. It's like putting a beer in front of a teenager and saying, hey, don't drink that. They're going to drink the beer.
Or it's like when you're boiling water. You keep the heat up for long enough, eventually that pot's gonna boil over.
And so this whole idea of heterosexual, like only hetero, just covering that one base is obviously not working, as shown by Texas, who is relying mostly on the abstinence pledge, which we all know no one's gonna follow.
Yeah, there's these crazy things called hormones.
If you say something's bad, then they're just gonna want to do it more. So that's obviously not working.
Where do you think the whole smoking teens came from?
Exactly. And it becomes this whole teenage craze, and people are saying nowadays, like the type of people who are like against teaching the proper like ways of staying safe and sexual health are saying, well, they don't need to know this and that, they just need to wait until they're properly matured. But how long do they wait until they try to do it on their own without knowing how to properly protect themselves?
The crazy part is, you can talk over and over again telling people, practice safe coitus, wrapping your willy, do whatever chicks do to prevent themselves
Plan
from
B.
getting pregnant. You can tell them to do that, but if you don't show them, it's effectively throwing a brick and expecting it to stick.
Not to mention, all of these things that we just pointed out are just for heterosexuals. A lot of same-sex couples don't know that there's not a lot of representation of gay sexual health, because a lot of these apply to like different sexes, but you can't do the same with two lesbians. They can't use a condom. That's not how it works.
I'm pretty sure there actually is something like that, but it goes in instead of out.
It lays on top. It is called a dental dam. And when I had surveyed a couple of teens for my school, one of them had actually came to me and said they didn't know what a dental dam was until they looked it up. And this is exactly the problem with this ignorant stance on sexual education. Because if they don't know what to do, then they're just gonna spread. They're gonna get sick. They're gonna experiment. They're gonna do something wrong.
Experimentations, normally there's a lot of failure before experiments yield any sort of success.
And with this the kind of diseases that are in the world, or pregnancy, there's a lot riding on the line.
Sexual education is something you shouldn't take lightly when it comes to experimentation. It's something you should research behind, and something that should be taught normally.
And a lot of people don't have access to these. Some people don't have access to internet or phones. And I've never seen a safe sex book in a library before. So they're probably going to be relying on these schools to teach them how to be safe and how to enjoy their sexual experiences. But these schools aren't providing reliable answers. They're just saying, wait. Well, how long does the person have to wait for until they try something on their own and end up hurting themselves because they don't know what they're doing? And this doesn't just apply to gay people too. This can be for straight people, because just now, coming into this new age, we're finally getting sexual representation and sexual knowledge in our schools, but the problem is it's mainly heterosexual.
Yeah, and I feel a good wrapping up point for this entire little thing is that it's not that we're trying to tell exactly how things are. It's just that we would prefer equal representation, so that people who decide and make the choice or figure out their such and such identity, is that we want them to be able to find it in a safe, controlled environment instead of accidentally doing something to themselves. Because again, they can end up really hurting themselves if they don't have anything to
Exactly. They could try experimenting with others who may have certain illnesses, or they also don't know what they're doing. They may look up how to do something, but find something incredibly unrealistic that can damage their self-esteem, such as pornographic stuff on the internet, which we all know is very unrealistic.
Very unrealistic, with very high body standards, and then they look down and go like, why doesn't mine look like
just
that?
Gonna create a whole bad temperament. People's body dysphoria and all of that they're gonna be very self-conscious about themselves because they tried to look up important information they needed, which they should have been provided. All right, I think this is a good
good
So
stopping point.
the main takeaway from this is without proper sexual representation and sex ed, then many people can be left without important information that they need. And this goes not just for straight people, but for gay people as well, because we're all basically doing the same thing, but in different ways. So we all need specific instructions and the know-how to do it, and we can't do it without that proper education.
Yeah, because without representation, there's no education.